There's a boat sitting in a backyard miles from the ocean. No trailer, no wheels. Just a half-finished boat resting on grass that's grown around it like the earth's decided it's staying. Most folks passing by think it's abandoned, broken, forgotten. But if you look closer, you'll see fresh bolts on the stern, a new coat of paint someone cared enough to add, and a name carved not by accident but by choice. This isn't really a story about a boat. It's about a man, a woman, two kids, and the messy, stubborn, beautiful way we figure out how to belong again. If stories like this mean something to you, quiet stories about second chances, about building more than just walls, maybe leave a like. Maybe subscribe. There's always a seat here for you too. There is a lighthouse standing at the edge of West Haven. It has not guided any ships for years, yet every night without fail it still lights up the empty sea. No one really knows why. Some say it's broken and stuck that way. Others think someone somewhere just refuses to turn it off. A few blocks inland past the broken pier and the line of shuttered bait shops sits an old boat workshop. Its roof is patched with mismatched tin. The paint on the window frames has long surrendered to salt and wind. Inside, Jack Whitaker works in silence. 42 years old, shoulders a bit more tired than his age should allow. His hands move with the rhythm of someone who has done this too long to think about it anymore. Wood shavings fall onto the concrete floor, mixing with dust that seems older than the town itself. There is a half-built boat in the center of the shop, or maybe half abandoned. The frame is strong. The planks are sanded smooth on one side, rough and untouched on the other, like someone started it with great intention and then stopped. On a shelf nearby sits a jar of screws, a folded piece of paper with faded pencil sketches, and a photograph turned face down. Nobody ever asks what's in that picture. Nobody has to. Outside, the wind carries the smell of salt rain and something older, something forgotten. The waves slap lazily against the rocks as if even the ocean has grown tired. Jack pauses. He wipes his hands on a rag that used to be a t-shirt, then glances toward the far corner where a small wood-burning stove crackles faintly. A pot of coffee sits there, forgotten but still warm enough. In the next room, his son Evan is quiet. 15. Thin. Sharp around the edges in that way kids get when they learn to build walls instead of bridges. Jack doesn't knock. He never does. He simply opens the door a few inches. "Dinner's on the table," he says, not looking in. No answer. It's always like this. Words have become currency too expensive for either of them to spend. Jack walks back to the kitchen. The table only has 2 chairs now. The others were stored away years ago. There's a dent in the wood where a wine bottle fell once a long time ago, back when the house was louder. He sets 2 plates down, one for himself, one for a son who might or might not come. Outside, the lighthouse flickers once, twice, then holds steady. A strange thing to shine when there's no one left out there looking. But maybe it's not about being seen. Maybe it's about refusing to go dark. Dinner is quiet, not the peaceful kind, the other kind. The kind that fills a room like cold fog, heavy, clinging. Impossible to shake. Jack eats in slow, mechanical bites. Across the table, Evan stares at his plate but doesn't touch it. Fork in hand, not moving, not angry, not sad, just absent. The clock on the wall ticks louder than it should. Jack always notices that. The old thing lost its minute hand years ago. Nobody bothered to fix it. Now it only tells half the time, which feels about right for this house. A fork scrapes against ceramic. Evan finally takes a bite, chews like someone remembering how. His hoodie is pulled up over his head, sleeves nearly cover his hands. A barrier, a fortress. Jack doesn't push. He learned a long time ago that questions bounce off walls like these. How was school, he asks, not expecting an answer. A shrug, maybe. Or maybe just a shift in weight. Silence again. Jack leans back slightly, eyes drifting toward the window. The boat workshop sits in view, its roof catching the last bit of fading light. That boat, the one he never finished, waits. Always waiting. Evan finally speaks, voice flat. Why do you even keep that thing? You're never gonna finish it. Jack's jaw tightens. Not because the boy is wrong, but because he's right. I might, Jack says, but even he doesn't believe it. Evan pokes at his food, eyes down. You say that every year. The words aren't cruel, they're not even angry, they're just facts. Facts delivered with the precision of someone who gave up waiting for anything different. Jack opens his mouth to reply, but nothing comes out. Instead, he stands, scrapes his chair back against the floor, picks up his plate. I'll finish it, he mutters, half to himself. Evan doesn't reply, doesn't nod, doesn't disagree. He just sinks further into his hoodie, pulling the strings tighter until most of his face disappears. Jack rinses his plate under cold water. The faucet drips even when turned off. Another thing on the list that never gets done. Behind him, Evan stands, leaves his plate mostly full, carries it to the sink without a word. Then the boy walks down the hallway, disappears into his room. Door closing, not with a slam but a soft, tired click. The kind of door that knows it's been shut too many times. Jack stands at the sink, hands gripping the counter. For a moment he just breathes. Not deeply, not to calm himself, just enough to remember that he still can. Outside, the lighthouse flashes once. Hold steady. Inside, there's no light left on in Evan's room. And the house feels like it's still waiting for someone who isn't coming back. The rain starts after midnight. Not the kind that tiptoes and the kind that falls heavy sideways, driven by wind that knows no mercy. Jack is in the workshop long after Evan's door clicked shut for the night. He's sanding the edge of a plank, or pretending to. Truth is, he hasn't touched this boat with any real purpose in months. Maybe years. A log pops in the stove behind him. Wind rattles the loose corner of a window. He makes a mental note to fix it, knowing full well he won't. Then a sound breaks through the storm, sharp, unnatural, not wind, not waves. An engine, coughing, struggling. Jack freezes, head tilting slightly. Another sputter. Tires crunch on gravel. The unmistakable hiss of steam escaping from an overworked radiator. He steps to the window, wipes a clear patch in the fogged glass. At first he sees nothing, just rain slicing through the dark. Then headlights, weak, flickering. A vehicle, an SUV, limping toward the edge of his driveway, wheels slipping in mud. It rolls to a stop, then silence, except for the rain. Jack watches, waiting, hoping maybe it's someone lost who'll figure it out and leave. But the driver's door creaks open. A woman steps out, tall, lean, posture stiff in a way that never leaves soldiers. Her jacket is military faded olive, soaked, the insignia nearly worn off. She walks around to the passenger side, opens the door, and two kids climb out. Girls. One maybe 9, the other small enough to still be missing her front teeth. The older one carries a backpack nearly as big as she is. The little one holds something close, a stuffed rabbit, one ear barely hanging on. Jack squints, watches as the woman checks the hood of the SUV, presses her palms to it, then steps back quickly. Steam hisses, something inside pops. For a long moment they just stand there, 3 silhouettes under the cruel weight of rain. No umbrella, no plan, no welcome. Jack's first instinct is simple and brutal. Lock the door, stay quiet, wait it out. Not his problem. But his hand doesn't move, because something about the way the woman stands, not panicked, not begging, just holding it together for as long as she can, it scratches at something inside him he thought was long dead. The older girl tugs at the woman's sleeve. The little one buries her face into her mother's coat. Jack steps away from the window, runs a hand through hair that hasn't seen a comb in days. His boots are heavy as he crosses the floor. By the time he opens the door, they're already halfway up the driveway. And none look like they know what happens next. Jack grips the door handle but doesn't turn it right away. His thumb taps against the brass, a habit, a hesitation. Outside footsteps squish against wet gravel, getting closer. His jaw tightens. It's been years since anyone stood on this porch uninvited, and longer still since anyone came needing anything besides directions or spare gas. The knock doesn't come. Instead, silence. Jack takes a breath that feels heavier than it should, then unlocks the bolt, turns the handle. The door opens a few inches, just enough to see them. The woman stands front and center. Rain plastered her hair to her forehead. Jacket soaked through, sleeves pushed up like she's ready for anything. Her eyes sharp, calculating, scanning everything, the door frame, Jack's stance, the angle of his shoulders. Behind her, the two girls huddle close. The older one, maybe 9, holds her sister's hand in a grip that says this isn't the first time they've stood in a stranger's doorway hoping it wouldn't go bad. Jack clears his throat, voice rough. "You lost," the woman answers immediately. Not rude, not friendly, just matter of fact. Not exactly. Her gaze doesn't waver. No smile, no pleasantries. Jack glances past her to the SUV still steaming by the fence, one headlight flickering, the hood popped open. "Kartrubeln," she nods once. "Yeah, blown gasket probably." Her voice is steady, but there's something underneath. Tight, held back, like someone gripping a rope that's fraying fast. Jack leans against the door frame, arms crossed. "Not much out here. You passed the last gas station 10 miles back." "I noticed." Silence stretches. The little one tugs at her sister's coat, whispers something only siblings understand. The woman shifts her weight. "Look, we just need somewhere dry. One night. We'll figure the rest out tomorrow." Jack studies her, really looks now. There's a line on her wrist pale where a watch used to be. The kind worn by people who once lived by military schedules. Her boots are scuffed, laces mismatched. Her hands strong but trembling, not from the cold. Behind his own guarded eyes, something clicks. He recognizes it. Not the uniform, not the posture. The look. People who have nowhere else left to knock. He swallows. There's a shed back behind the shop. It's dry, has heat. She tilts her head, eyes narrowing slightly, measuring if this is a real offer or just words. Then fine. She doesn't thank him. Doesn't explain. Just turns to the girls. Come on. Jack steps aside as they pass, wet footprints trailing across the wooden floor. As he closes the door, he catches his own reflection in the window. It's a strange thing realizing you've just opened your home before you had time to decide if you should. Jack steps off the porch, boots sinking half an inch into mud. The rain is eased, but only a little. Still heavy enough to sting the back of his neck. Back this way, he says over his shoulder, not looking to see if they follow. The woman does, so do the girls. Quiet except for the squelch of wet sneakers and the occasional sniffle from the youngest. The shed sits behind the boat workshop. It's more solid than it looks. Jack made sure of that. New locks, reinforced beams. Not for them, not back then, but for himself, for tools, for storage. He unlocks the side door, pushes it open. Inside, the smell of sawdust mixes with damp wool and cold air. A wood stove sits in the corner, not lit. A pile of folded tarps doubles as a crude bench. Tools line one wall, ropes and nets another. It's dry, Jack mutters. Stove works, you'll need kindling. The woman steps in first, eyes scanning everything. Automatic, trained, every corner, every exit, every possible threat. The older girl follows, keeps one hand locked onto her sister's wrist like it's a lifeline. The little one drags a limp stuffed rabbit by one ear, eyes wide, already memorizing this new temporary world. Jack grabs a crate, flips it upside down. Sit if you want. No one moves. Then from the main house, a soft creak. Jack glances toward the window, sees it immediately. Ivan, the boy, stands half-shadowed in the kitchen window, hoodie up, face barely visible. But Jack knows the look even from here. Arms crossed, eyes sharp, watching. Jack doesn't wave, doesn't signal. They both know what this is. The boy says nothing, doesn't turn away, doesn't come out either, just watches. The woman notices, of course she does. Her shoulders shift just a fraction, defensive. Jack clears his throat. Not much, but it's warm enough once the stove gets going. Jeanette. She nods. Appreciate it. First time she's said anything close to gratitude. Jack lights the stove. Flame catches. Soft orange glow begins to push the shadows back. I've got blankets in the shop. I'll bring 'em. She doesn't answer right away. Then we won't be trouble. Jack meets her eyes. Didn't say you would. Behind her, the older girl finally lets go of her sister's wrist. The little one edges toward the stove, sets the rabbit carefully next to it, as if warmth might seep back into its threadbare seams. Jack steps out, pulls the door shut behind him. Evan is still in the window, still watching. Jack catches his eye. For a moment, neither of them look away. It's a silent conversation that says everything neither is ready to speak aloud. The stove cracks softly. A thin line of smoke twists upward before settling into steady warmth. The air inside the shed begins to shift, still damp but less cruel. Jack returns with an armful of blankets, rough old but clean. He drops them onto the crate. Use what you need. The woman nods. No smile, no thank you, just acknowledgement. It feels more honest than words anyway. The older girl kneels. unfolds one blanket, wraps it around her sister's shoulders. The little one clutches her rabbit tighter, eyes tracking everything, everyone like a wild thing, not sure if it's safe to breathe yet. Jack steps back, leans against the doorframe, arms crossed. For a few seconds, it's only the sound of wind nudging the shed, the pop of the fire, and breathing. 4 sets plus his, then footsteps behind him. Evan, the boy, stands just inside the threshold, hoodie still up, hands jammed into pockets. His face is set, not angry, just closed. Jack glances over, says nothing. Neither does Evan. The woman notices, her body shifts again, subtle, protective, instinct, not choice. Jack clears his throat. "This is my son, Evan." Evan doesn't move, doesn't nod, just flicks his eyes toward the strangers, then back down. The older girl speaks first, quiet but steady. "I'm Emma, and that's Rosie." Rosie peeks out from the blanket, then hides again. The woman doesn't offer her name. Jack notices but doesn't press. Evan leans against the opposite wall, mirror image of his father. Same posture, same arms crossed, defense. A pair of statues waiting to see if the storm outside or the one inside will hit first. No one talks, no one asks, but something happens anyway. Rosie reaches out just enough to push her rabbit closer to the stove. Careful, gentle, like she's making sure it stays warm. Evan watches. Doesn't comment, doesn't mock, just watches. Jack notices that too. He exhales through his nose. Not a sigh, exactly, more like releasing something he didn't know he was holding. The woman kneels, pulls the blanket tighter around the girls. "We won't be long," she says, not looking at anyone. Jack doesn't answer right away. Instead, he pokes the fire, watches the sparks climb, then says softer than he meant to, "Storm's not over yet." Silence answers, but not the heavy kind this time. Just space. Shared space. Outside, the wind eases, not gone, just less cruel for now. Inside, nobody says it out loud, but something shifts. Not trust. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of warmth that isn't just from fire. Morning comes slow. The kind that slips in sideways through cracks in the walls. Gray light. No warmth yet, but less harsh than the night. Jack is already in the workshop, hands deep in a drawer, searching for something he's not even sure he needs. The boat sits in the center, same as always. Half built, half forgotten, its frame catching bits of morning light like it's daring someone to care about it again. Then voices. "Futumakut." Small ones. Jack turns surprised. There they are. Nora, the older girl Emma, and the little one Rosie. No knocking, no asking, just showing up. Nora carries an old broom, the handle splintered near the top. She doesn't say anything, just starts sweeping. Dust, sawdust, cobwebs older than Rosie. Emma grabs a stack of scrap wood from the corner, starts sorting it into neat piles, usable firewood broken. And Rosie finds the planer. It's old, wooden, heavy for her tiny hands. But she drags it across the floor like a toy. Her boots scuff against the concrete. She giggles soft, unsure but real. Jack watches, arms crossed, back pressed against the wall. "Careful with that," he says finally. "It bites if you're not." Rosie stops, eyes wide, then grins. "It's like a shark," she announces, turning it over in her hands, "a wood shark." Emma shakes her head. The hint of a smile cracks through her serious face. Nora doesn't stop sweeping, doesn't even look up. Didn't think you'd mind, she says, figured it needed doing. Jack shrugs. Does? His voice is even, neutral, but something in his chest shifts just a little. The sound of the broom dragging, the scrape of wood being stacked, Rosie humming to herself as she lines up random tools into what might be a castle or a fortress or nothing at all. Jack steps toward the boat. His fingers trail along the edge of the hull. The curve still smooth, still waiting. You ever built one of these, he asks, not looking at anyone. Nora leans the broom against the wall, brushes damp hair from her face. Nope, she says, but I've patched enough Humvees to guess wood's more forgiving than steel. Jack lets out the smallest chuckle. It catches him off guard. He hides it with a cough. Sometimes, he says, sometimes not. Rosie crouches beside the keel, runs her tiny palm over the grain. Is it gonna float, she asks. Jack crouches too, meets her at eye level. Depends. On what? On whether someone decides to finish it. Rosie thinks about that, seriously, like it's the most important math problem she's ever faced. Then nods. Well, we should. And somehow in that moment it doesn't sound like a suggestion. It sounds like a promise. The sound comes sharp. Wood creaks, not under the weight of tools but under small boots. Evan freezes at the threshold of the workshop. His eyes' narrow jaw tightens. There, near the bow of the half-built boat, Rosie. Tiny hands gripping the edge. One muddy boot already swung up onto the frame, balancing, wobbling like a baby bird daring itself to fly. Hey, Evan's voice slices through the air, louder than anyone's heard in months. Rosie startles. One foot slips, but she catches herself, frozen in place. Jack turns too late, sees the scene unfold, but Evan is faster. Get down, Evan snaps, stepping forward, fists clenched. Voice shaking, not with anger, but something sharper, thinner, like panic, pretending to be fury. Rosie blinks, eyes wide. For a second, she doesn't move. Doesn't know if it's safer to freeze or flee. Emma bolts from the corner. Rosie off, now. Nora's broom drops, hits the floor with a dull thud. Jack raises a hand instinctively. Easy, she's just... But Evan isn't hearing it. His voice cracks. She's gonna break it. She doesn't know. She can't. Rosie's lip quivers. I just... Her words tangle, drown. Emma reaches her, tugs her down by the arm, not rough but firm. Rosie stumbles onto the floor, rabbit pressed to her chest. I didn't mean to, she mumbles, barely a whisper. Evan turns away, hands gripping his hoodie string so tight his knuckles go pale. Jack steps forward. Ivan. But the boy cuts him off without looking. Why'd you bring them here? Not a scream. Not even a question, really. Just something raw, heavy. Something he didn't mean to let fall out, but it did. Jack's mouth opens, closes. The words he needs, they're somewhere, but not where he can reach them. Nora stands still, shoulders square, chin high, not defensive, not apologizing either. Girls, she says, out now. Emma grabs Rosie's hand. They back toward the door. No protests, no questions. Jack watches them go. The youngest glancing back, once rabbit clutched so tight its stitched eye looks ready to pop. Then silence, the kind that isn't empty but swollen. Jack rubs a hand over his face. The roughness of stubble scratches his palm. She's a kid, Evan, he says, tired. She didn't know. Evan doesn't answer. just stares hard at the floor, breathing through his teeth, shoulders shaking, not from cold. Jack wants to say something, anything, to stitch the air back together. But sometimes you don't get to. Sometimes all you can do is stand in the splinters. The roof's been leaking since last spring. Jack always told himself he'd fix it before the next storm. Never did. Now here he is, hammer in hand, boots scraping across shingles that should have been replaced 5 years ago. A nail slips. Jack curses under his breath, adjusts, keeps going. Down below, Nora stands by the firewood stack, arms folded, watching but not really watching. Her eyes track Jack's movements like someone half reading a language they almost forgot. She doesn't offer help, doesn't interrupt, just stands there. Jack notices. Of course he does. He taps a nail into place, drives it in with 2 clean hits, wipes the back of his wrist against his forehead, streaking dirt across skin he doesn't bother keeping clean anymore. From this angle, looking down at her, he realizes something strange. She's not looking for an invitation. She's just present. The wind shifts, blows strands of hair across her face. She doesn't move to fix it. Jack kneels, lines up another shingle. "You're good at that," Nora says finally. Her voice carries easy but not loud, like it wasn't meant to be heard but wasn't meant to be hidden either. Jack doesn't look down. Had to be. Another nail, another swing. Nora steps closer to the ladder, hands in pockets. Shoulders slightly hunched, not from cold, but from the kind of weight that doesn't come from weather. "Boat 2, she asks. Had to be good at that. Jack pauses, looks at the boat frame sitting half-finished in the yard below. His jaw works, but no words come right away. "Started it when things were different," he says, quiet, honest. Nora nods once, doesn't push. The kind of nod that says, "Yeah, I know that kind of different." Jack hammers the last nail, tests the shingle with a shove of his palm. It holds. He sits back on his heels, exhales, lets his gaze drift not toward her this time, but past her, toward the tree line, the ocean beyond it, somewhere, anywhere but here. Nora leans against the ladder, eyes soft but not gentle, measured, familiar. 2 people standing on opposite sides of a sentence neither is ready to say out loud. Then a small sound, Rosie's laughter, distant but bright. Emma chasing her between puddles, the rhythm of small feet against wet gravel. Nora doesn't turn to look, neither does Jack. But something eases, just a little. The roof's not perfect, some leaks will stay, some won't. Same with people. Jack brushes sawdust from his jeans, stands. Roof's done for now. Nora nods. "Yeah," she says, "for now." Neither smile. Neither need to. The ding comes just after sunrise. Not loud. Just a quiet vibration from a phone shoved deep inside Nora's jacket pocket, one she hadn't checked in 2 days. She almost ignores it. Almost. The girls are still asleep, curled together under a pile of mismatched blankets. Rosie's tiny hand still clutches the corner of her sister's shirt, like even in dreams she needs something to hold. Nora steps outside. The air bites. Not sharp, but enough to remind her she's still somewhere temporary. Somewhere not meant for staying. She flips the phone over, cracked screen, battery at 14%. One notification. Subject shelter space confirmed from Family Support Services. Her thumb hovers, then taps. The email opens with polite words language designed to feel warm but always lands cold. Dear Ms. Keller, we are pleased to inform you that a placement has become available. A shelter, downstate, temporary housing, access to job placement, a school for the girls, food, safety, structure. It's everything a caseworker would call stable. But the last line hits hardest. Please confirm your arrival by Friday at 10 a.m., or the space will be released to the next eligible family. Nora's hand tightens around the phone, thumb pressing so hard the screen distorts beneath it. Friday. Today's Tuesday. 3 days. The wind picks up, catches the edge of her scarf. Frayed threads flap like warning flags. She doesn't move, doesn't breathe. Her reflection stares back from the dark phone screen. Pale, tired, jaw set the way it always is when choices come dressed as mercy but feel like ultimatums. Behind her laughter. Faint. The girls are awake now. Rosie's tiny voice floats through the workshop, something about pancakes or pirates or both. Nora doesn't turn around. Her thumb hovers over the reply button. Confirm. One tap, just one. That's all it takes to set the next chapter in motion. But her hand won't move, because something strange is happening. Something dangerous. Her brain is screaming the math. Shelter equals stability. Structure. A bed that doesn't move. Walls that won't blow down in the next storm. A school where Emma won't be the new kid for the 4th time this year. But her chest is whispering something else entirely. A memory not even old, just from yesterday. Rosie's hand dragging a planer across the workshop floor, calling it a wood shark. Emma stacking broken scrap wood like it was something precious. And Jack watching it all without saying anything but not walking away either. Nora locks the phone, shoves it back into her pocket like it burned her. She stares out toward the ocean but sees nothing. Because right now every direction feels like leaving something behind. Nora leans against the corner of the workshop, arms folded. One boot presses into the gravel, grinding it in slow circles like the ground itself might offer answers if she presses hard enough. Across the yard, Rosie and Emma are building something. Not a game. Not make-believe, something real, at least real to them. A line of flat stones becomes a wall. Driftwood pieces turn into beams. A bent metal bucket a roof. Rosie calls it a bakery. Emma insists it's a shipyard. Neither agrees, but both keep building anyway. Their laughter floats up, warm, light. The kind of sound this place hasn't heard in years. Nora watches chest tight. It would be easier if they hated it here. If Rosie missed the neon noise of city streets. If Emma complained about cold floors and broken fences. But they don't. Not even a little. Emma tucks her hair behind her ears, something Nora's seen 100 times, then presses a stick into the dirt like it's a flagpole. Rosie runs to grab a piece of rope, trips, falls, pops back up with a grin so wide it nearly splits her face. Nora's hand grips the edge of the wall, fingertips digging into the grain of weathered wood. Her brain starts the math again. Shelter equals food, a roof, a door that locks, social workers off her back, stability, safety. But her gut refuses, because stability comes wrapped in fluorescent lights. Thin mattresses, shared bathrooms, rules written by people who don't know her girls. who don't understand that Emma needs silence sometimes, or that Rosie doesn't fall asleep without the sound of wind moving through trees. Jack's silhouette moves in the background, carrying lumber, fixing something or pretending to. He doesn't speak, doesn't intrude, but he's there, always just there. Nora presses her knuckles to her lips. Tunudin 3 days. The number loops, 3 days to decide. Stay where nothing is guaranteed. Where the roof leaks, the boat may never float. The future is a question mark painted on damp wood. Or go to a place where the boxes check themselves, safety, structure, sterility. But at what cost? A scream of gulls cuts through the air. Rosie chases one, laughing, waving her arms like maybe this time she'll fly too. Nora lets her head fall back against the wall, eyes closed. For a moment, just one, she lets herself imagine something reckless. What if the safest thing isn't running? Jack wipes his hands on a rag that used to be a shirt. The sun's starting to dip. Gold light edges the corners of the workshop, stretching shadows across the floor. Nora leans against the doorway, arms crossed, not defensive, not closed off, just steady, waiting. For a moment, neither speaks. Jack breaks it first. You know his voice, low, rough like gravel left out in the rain. Things don't fix themselves. Nora shifts her weight, one shoulder nudging the frame. Yeah, she says, I know. Jack nods. Looks down at the plank in his hands, then out toward the boat sitting half-finished, half-forgotten. I used to think he pauses, chews on the words like they taste bitter. If something breaks bad enough, maybe it's better to leave it. Walk away. Nora doesn't move. But Jack continues. Turns out anything that still wants to exist still wants to matter. It doesn't just fall apart quietly. He gestures toward the boat. Even that. You leave it long enough, the wood twists, cracks, starts yelling at you. You either fix it or admit it ain't ever gonna float. Silence. Then softer, quieter. Nora's voice. You talking about the boat? Jack meets her eyes. No smile, no dodge. Not just. Her arms unfold. Hands slide into jacket pockets. Yeah, a long breath. Yeah, I figured. Neither looks away. Neither rushes. Then a sound. Subtle. A floorboard near the hallway. Jack doesn't turn. He knows. Evan's there. Not visible, but close enough to hear every word. Nora knows too. Her eyes flick once toward the sound, but she doesn't call it out. She lets it be. Jack leans back against the workbench. His hands rest on the edge like he's steadying more than just his body. You could leave, he says finally. Doors not locked. Nora tilts her head, studying him. But you didn't lock it the night we showed up either. Jack's lips press into a thin line, not a smile, not exactly. No, he agrees, didn't. Nora glances toward the girls out in the yard. Still stacking rocks, still pretending the world is small enough to fit between their hands. Then softer. Some things, she says, some things break because they're supposed to. Jack doesn't flinch, but others, her eyes meet his again. Others are just waiting for someone who still thinks they're worth fixing. The wind picks up, whispers against the walls, fills the spaces between words that neither one is brave enough or foolish enough to finish. Inside a hoodie rustles, a quiet breath holds, then fades. Evan hears it all, every word. Every pause, Every choice that hasn't been made yet but just got harder to ignore. The morning air smells like wet wood and salt, not clean, not fresh, just honest. Jack stands at the workbench, hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug. He hasn't touched the boat yet, just looking at it, like he does every morning. Like maybe today, maybe the motivation will show up before the excuses do. Then a sound he hasn't heard in years. Boots, small, fast. The workshop door creaks open. Evan, no hoodie today. Just a plain t-shirt 2 sizes too big. His hair's a mess. Face unreadable. He doesn't say anything. Just walks straight past Jack, picks up the hammer, the old one with the crack in the handle that nobody ever fixes. Jack's mouth opens, but no words come. Evan kneels by the frame of the boat, grabs a plank from the pile, checks it edges grain knots like he's seen Jack do 1,000 times pretending not to watch. Lines it up, square, clean, then bang, bang, bang. The first nail sinks in. Crooked, he adjusts, drives it home. Jack sets the coffee down slower than necessary. His voice catches, clears. You sure about that? Evan doesn't look up. Yeah. Not angry, not sharp. Just like it was always going to happen. Like this isn't some grand gesture, but the most normal thing in the world. Jack leans on the bench, crosses his arms, watches. Another nail, another plank. The kid's grip is wrong. His swings are sloppy, but it doesn't matter. Because he's doing it. Because for the first time, and God knows how long, he's choosing to put something together instead of waiting for it to fall apart. Jack exhales, slow, careful, like the air suddenly feels heavier than it did a minute ago. You remember the spacer blocks, he asks, casual, gentle. Evan nods, doesn't hesitate. Already set 'em. Bang, bang. Jack lets the smallest corner of his mouth pull upward, not a smile. Not quite, but something close enough to count. He walks over, crouches beside the boy, grabs a level. All right, he says, let's not screw it up. Evan's hands pause just for a second. Then a nod. No eye contact. But it's there. The agreement. The truce. Maybe the start of something bigger than that. From the doorway, Nora watches, quiet. One hand resting against the frame. She doesn't step inside, doesn't interrupt. She just stands there watching 2 people who've both forgotten how to ask for help. Learning how to offer it anyway. The wind shifts. The smell of salt fades, replaced by sawdust, sweat, and something warmer. Something like hope. Nora stays by the doorway, half in, half out. Arms folded tight across her chest, but not because of the cold. Her thumb traces the frayed edge of her jacket sleeve. Slow, methodical. Something to do with her hands while her heart forgets how to sit still. She watches. Jack leaning over the frame explaining something about weight distribution. Voice steady, hands moving like they've done this 1,000 times. And Evan listens. Not because he has to. Not because anyone made him, but because somehow in some quiet corner of the night before something shifted. He's not just hammering nails. He's showing up. Nora swallows. The knot in her throat feels bigger than it should. Heavy. Familiar. The same knot that tightened the first night she held Emma. The first time Rosie coughed too hard and wouldn't stop. A knot made of this matters more than anything else. Don't mess it up. She leans her shoulder against the frame. lets her head rest back, looks up toward the slats of the roof like maybe the answer's hidden there. It isn't. Her gaze drifts back. Evan's face is focused, jaw tight, brows pulled together. His hands still fumble, but there's no frustration in it, only determination. And Jack isn't correcting him. Not in that sharp, impatient way men sometimes do when they think they're teaching. No. Jack adjusts, guides, steps back when he should, steps forward when needed. Not perfect, not rehearsed, just present. Nora presses her palm flat against the wood beside her, feels the grain, the texture, the warmth. For a second, just one, she lets herself imagine something reckless. What if this isn't temporary? Her breath catches. She hates that thought. Because it's dangerous. Because it's not safe. Because the more real this feels, the harder it'll be to leave. The wind shifts, carries the faint smell of sawdust, salt, and something sweeter. The smell of work, of hands doing honest things. Rosie's laughter cuts through the air, high, wild, free. Emma's voice follows, soft teasing, trying not to laugh but failing. Nora closes her eyes. The sound sinks in deeper than it should. Fills cracks she's spent years pretending didn't exist. She opens them again, watches the boy who barely spoke to her now kneeling beside his father, hands smudged with glue, eyes brighter than they've been since she arrived. And without meaning to, without planning it, her lips shape 3 words. Not aloud, not even a whisper. Just the shape. Please don't break. Then she pushes herself off the frame, straightens, shoulders squared. When Jack glances back, she's already looking away. Because some things aren't ready to be said. Not yet. The clouds are low, heavy. Not quite ready to rain, but thinking about it. Nora stands by the SUV, hood still dented. One headlight still cracked from a pothole 3 towns back. She brushes hair from her face, digs the keys out of her jacket pocket, cold metal biting against skin. Jack lingers by the workshop, not watching her, but not watching either. Evan sits on the porch steps, whittling a block of wood into something unrecognizable, pretending not to notice. But the way his shoulders stiffen says otherwise. The girls are quieter than usual. Emma stacks smooth stones in the dirt like tiny sentinels. Rosie draws circles with a stick over and over until the mud gives up and turns to paste. Nora grips the keys tighter. Click. The dashboard lights flicker weakly. Whir, cough, silence. She closes her eyes, twists the key again. Whir, nothing. Fingers grip the steering wheel until her knuckles go white. Jaw clenched so tight it aches. 3rd time, click. Whir, choke, silence. That's it. No more. No smoke, no explosion, not even drama. Just the quiet kind of failure, the kind that doesn't even bother to warn you anymore. She lets her hands fall to her lap, stares out through the cracked windshield at the gravel drive, at the edge of the trees, at nothing. No one moves, no one speaks. Jack runs a hand down the back of his neck, pretends to check something on the workbench, fiddles with a screwdriver that doesn't need fiddling. Evan keeps his head down, knife sliding over wood in steady mechanical movements, faster now, not careful, just moving. Rosie breaks the silence first, quiet, curious, not afraid. Is it broken again? Nora doesn't answer, not right away. Her fingers tap once, twice against the key still stuck in the ignition. Then softly, almost to herself. Yeah, baby, I guess it is. Emma doesn't look up, just presses another stone into the dirt like it matters where it lands. Jack exhales, long, slow, but doesn't step forward, doesn't offer help, doesn't say I told you so. He's not that kind of man, and Nora doesn't ask, because they both know if the van really wanted to leave, it would have started. The wind shifts, brushes through the pines, lifts the edges of the blue tarp flapping against the workshop wall. The only sound for a full minute is the soft rhythmic creak of that tarp, like the house itself is breathing. Nora reaches for the key, turns it off, slides it from the ignition, lets it fall into her palm, stares at it, and for the first time in weeks, maybe months, her hands stop shaking. The smell hits first. Eggs, toast, coffee that's a little burnt but somehow perfect anyway. The kind of smell that fills a place and makes it feel less like a shelter and more like a home someone forgot to call home. Nora steps into the kitchen barefoot, hair pulled into a messy knot. Rosie trails behind her, socked feet sliding across the worn wood floor. Emma's already at the table, cross-legged, flipping through a book like it's the most normal thing in the world. Jack stands at the stove, frying pan in one hand, spatula in the other. Focused but not tense, just present. Evan moves plates onto the table. No hoodie, no headphones, no wall. For the first time since anyone can remember, he's just there. There's a third chair pulled up now. No one mentions it. No one says, oh, that wasn't here before. It's just there, like it always should have been. Nora rubs the back of her neck. Tries to act like this isn't strange. Like sitting at someone else's table drinking someone else's coffee isn't the kind of thing that used to mean she was staying too long. Jack sets a plate in front of Rosie, then Emma, then Evan, then her, then one for himself. No questions, no commentary. Evan passes the butter across the table to Emma. She takes it, nods. Doesn't look at him, but doesn't avoid looking either. Rosie taps her fork against her plate. Do the eggs float? Jack raises an eyebrow. Float. Yeah, she says, like boats. A pause. Then Jack shrugs. Only if you drop 'em in water. Rosie grins. Can we try? No, everyone answers at once. Laughter. Soft, real. The kind that doesn't feel borrowed. Nora watches Evan out of the corner of her eye. Watches the way his hands move precise, careful cutting toast into triangles. Watches how his eyes flick toward Rosie when she giggles, then back to his plate like he didn't just check if she was okay. She notices Jack noticing the same thing. The coffee pot gurgles. Steam clouds the window above the sink. Outside, the trees sway. Sunlight breaks through in shards. No one talks about the van. No one talks about the shelter. No one asks when anyone's leaving. Because for the first time, it doesn't feel like anyone is. Jack pours more coffee. Sets the mug in front of Nora without looking at her. She refills his without asking. And it's such a small thing, such a quiet, ordinary thing. But it feels loud, in the way that healing always does when it finally starts whispering. Look, you're still here. You're still choosing to be here. The smell of paint lingers heavier than the salt in the air. It's not fancy paint, just 2 leftover cans Jack found under the workbench. One a faded navy blue, the other off-white, almost gray, the color of clouds about to break but never quite doing it. Rosie dips a brush into the blue, tongue sticking out in focus. Her strokes are wild, uneven, but deliberate. The left side of the hull is now covered in uneven circles that were supposed to be flowers but look more like fireworks or suns with too many rays. That's a lot of petals, Jack comments, trying not to smile. It's art, Rosie declares. Boats need art or they get sad. Emma kneels at the bow, her hands more measured, careful, brushing clean lines along the trim where wood meets waterline. Don't forget under the keel, she reminds Jack without looking up. Bossy, he mutters, but grabs the brush anyway. Evan crouches by the stern, wrench in hand, tightening a bolt that's been loose since, well, probably since the frame was first built. His hands are steady, focused, each twist smooth, confident. No one told him to do it. No one had to. Jack watches him from the corner of his eye, says nothing, but the corner of his mouth pulls just a little. Nora stands back at first, arms crossed, like she always does, like someone who isn't sure if she's part of this or just passing through. Then Rosie tugs her sleeve. "Help me," she demands. "Your flowers are bad, but your stars are okay." Nora blinks, laughs once, then kneels beside her brush in hand and starts dotting stars between the messy blue explosions Rosie calls daisies. Evan glances over, sees it, looks back down, but the way his grip softens around the wrench says everything. The sun breaks through for the first time all day. Hits the side of the hull, makes the blue glow imperfect, streaked but alive. Jack stands, hands on hips, looks at it. "It ain't pretty," he says. Rosie grins. "It's perfect." Emma wipes her hands on a rag, surveys the bow like she's inspecting someone's homework. Evan gives the last bolt a final twist, checks it twice, then 3 times. Quiet, serious. Jack runs a palm down the curve of the stern. You know his voice lower, almost like he's talking to himself. Most boats, they get named before they ever touch water. Rosie perks up. Ours too. Jack shrugs. Suppose it should. Emma tilts her head. It doesn't have to be big, just something that means something. They all look at each other, then at the boat. No one says the name yet, but the idea of it hangs there, thick, real, waiting. The sun's barely holding on. Gold edges fade into soft blues. The sky calm, like it knows it should stay quiet for this. Jack steps out from the workshop, hands gripping something large, flat, covered by an old towel. Evan notices first, straightens, pushes off the porch rail. Nora glances up from tying Rosie's shoelace. Her hands pause mid-knot. Jack doesn't say anything, just walks to the boat, sets the thing down on the grass, peels the towel back. A wooden sign, rough, not polished, letters carved deep, not perfect but clean, done by hand. 2 words. "Tuzud, safe harbor." For a moment no one speaks. Even the wind holds its breath. Rosie's the first to move. She scurries over fingers tracing the letters. "Safe harbor," she says aloud, testing how it feels in her mouth, like trying on a coat to see if it fits. Emma steps closer, tilts her head, quiet but smiling. "It fits," she says softly. Evan stays back half a step, arms crossed but not like a wall anymore. More like a habit that hasn't realized it's not needed. Nora doesn't move, just stares at it. At the words, at what it means. Jack clears his throat. runs a hand across the back of his neck, doesn't look at anyone. Figure he starts, stops, starts again. Figure if something's worth finishing, it's worth naming. His voice isn't loud, isn't asking permission, it's just there, like the sign. Nora swallows, arms wrapped tighter across her chest. Not defensive, just holding something that feels suddenly too big for hands alone. She doesn't say thank you, doesn't say why'd you do this because the answer is obvious, and saying it would make it too real, too dangerous. Jack kneels by the hull, lifts the sign, fits it against the stern, checks the bolts, tightens one, adjusts the angle, then nods. Evan steps forward, offers the wrench without being asked. Together father and son fasten the sign, metal to wood, words to intention. Safe harbor. Not flashy, not fancy, but permanent. When it's done, they all stand back. No applause, no speeches, just standing together. Rosie reaches up, slips her small hand into Emma's. Emma squeezes just once. Nora finally breathes out. You know, she says, voice lower than usual, I always thought safe harbors were places you found. Jack's eyes meet hers. Sometimes he says, sometimes you build 'em. No one replies. No one needs to. Because this is the kind of thing you don't explain. You just stay long enough for it to mean something. The air feels different today, warmer, softer. The kind of morning that tricks you into thinking maybe things stay this way. Rosie runs barefoot through the grass. Her laughter rises, tumbles, and disappears into the wind. Emma chases her, one arm clutching a tin bucket, the other waving like it might slow Rosie down. It won't. Near the workshop, Jack kneels by a coil of rope hands, busy but relaxed. Rosie stumbles over, panting. Teach me, she demands, the twisty one, the sailor one. Jack smirks, ties the end into a loose loop. Bowling, he says. Hold steady when it counts, won't slip, won't jam. Same knot they teach rescue crews. Her eyes widen like he just handed her the key to some secret grown-up magic. Like superhero rope, Jack chuckles. Yeah, kinda. He shows her slow loop under a round back through. Big hands guiding small ones. She fumbles, messes it up, tries again, doesn't quit. Good, Jack says, one more time. From the kitchen window, Nora watches. Her hands move on their own, stacking dishes, wiping counters, folding towels that don't need folding. But her eyes don't leave them. Jack's hands, Rosie's hands, the way his voice shifts softer. Patient, not the voice of someone doing a chore, but someone building something that's meant to last. Nora turns back to the sink, fights a smile, fails. Evan sitting under the shade of the big oak. Not hiding, not sulking, just sanding a plank. Careful, focused. Every so often he glances toward Emma and Rosie like he's pretending not to care whether they're winning their game but clearly keeping score. A gull screeches overhead. Rosie looks up, waves both arms like maybe it'll wave back. It doesn't, but she grins anyway. Jack tightens the knot, holds it up. See, he says, that's a promise knot. Rosie tilts her head. A what? Jack's eyes soften. Means no matter how much it pulls, it holds. Oh, she whispers it like a secret. That's good. Emma runs past, flings a handful of grass at her sister, then darts behind the shed laughing. Rosie untangles herself from the rope, charges after her. Jack stands, stretches his back, watches them go. For a second, just a second, he lets his hands fall to his sides. Looks toward the porch. toward Nora, wiping her hands on a dish towel, trying not to look like she's watching him. Their eyes meet, hold, no words. Just the weight of 100 unsaid things. A breeze lifts the corner of the tarp, birds scatter, and for a moment the world feels still, whole, right. They don't know, not yet, but storm clouds are already gathering beyond the tree line. The table's full. Plates crowd one another. A bowl of roasted potatoes barely fits between the basket of bread and the chipped dish of scrambled eggs. Someone should have gotten a bigger table, but no one minds. Evan passes the butter without being asked. Rosie grabs it midair like it's a relay race. Emma scolds her. Nora laughs under her breath. Jack watches from the stove, turns the last pancake, slides it onto a plate already stacked too high, no complaints. Evan leans back in his chair, crosses his arms. But his face softer tonight, like the corners aren't pulled so tight. Then out of nowhere I ever tell you about the time I got chased by a goose. The whole table freezes. Jack stops mid-reach for his coffee. Nora blinks. Emma's fork hangs halfway to her mouth. Rosie gasps, no. Evan shrugs, tries to play it cool. But the flicker of a grin betrays him. Yeah, down by the pier. Last summer I was trying to, be cool. Thought I could sneak up and grab one of its eggs. You what? Emma bursts, half horrified, half delighted. Evan grins now, no hiding it. Yeah, dumb I know, but I thought I don't know, maybe it wouldn't notice. Rosie leans forward, eyes wide. Did it? Oh, it noticed. Laughter, real, unfiltered. Evan gestures with both hands, now getting into it. Thing spread its wings, came at me like a demon with feathers. Screeching, I swear it grew 3 feet taller in seconds. Jack chuckles. Nora covers her mouth with one hand, trying and failing not to laugh. What did you do? Rosie demands. Ran, Evan says simply, fast. Tripped over a crab trap, fell straight into the mud. The table explodes. Even Jack, quiet, steady Jack, lets out a full laugh. Not loud, not wild, but real. Rosie nearly falls out of her chair. Emma has tears in her eyes. Nora leans back, hand over her chest. A grin wide enough it almost feels foreign on her face. For a moment, just one, there's nothing else. No broken van, no shelter deadline, no storm clouds building somewhere past the hills. Just this, a boy who forgot he was supposed to be guarded. A kitchen that forgot it was supposed to be quiet. A family that forgot it wasn't supposed to call itself that. Jack stands, reaches for the pancake plate, hands it to Nora without looking. She takes it, refills Rosie's plate. Passes syrup to Evan. Emma wipes her eyes, still laughing. For the first time in a long time, this house remembers what it sounds like when people stay. The wind shifts sometime after dinner. Not strong, not yet, but different, heavier. Carried with it that low hum the trees make when they know something's coming. Inside, no one notices, not yet. Rosie sits cross-legged on the floor. Her pockets full of markers she smuggled from the junk drawer. Emma lounges nearby, flipping through a dog-eared book, pretending she's not watching but watching. Evan leans against the wall, knees pulled up, hoodie off, sleeves pushed back. Not hiding. Just there. Rosie scoots closer. Looks up at him, head tilted. Can I? Evan blinks. Can you what? She holds up a red marker, wiggles it. Draw something. He hesitates. Starts to say no, but then shrugs, offers his arm, palm up, bare wrist exposed. Okay, but not a unicorn, he says. Rosie grins. Deal. She leans in. Tongue poked out the corner of her mouth, focused like she's performing surgery. The marker tip squeaks against skin. A heart. Not perfect. A little lopsided, one side bigger than the other. Ink bleeds slightly along the tiny hairs on his wrist. Rosie sits back, caps the marker with a dramatic snap. There she declares, now you can't be mean. Evan stares at it, silent. His fingers twitch like they might wipe it off. But they don't. He just watches it, this tiny, crooked heart, this ridiculous little shape. Red, loud, obvious. Rosie leans her head against his arm. No permission asked, no need. You don't have to keep it forever, she says, voice smaller, just until it fades. Evan's throat tightens in a way he doesn't understand. He shifts not away but enough to glance at her. I guess that's fair. She nods. Yeah. Emma glances up, smiles, doesn't say anything, just watches. Jack passes through the hallway, arms full of firewood. Sees them, takes it in. The markers, the heart. The fact that Evan doesn't wipe it off. Jack doesn't comment, just lets it be. Nora catches it from the kitchen doorway. The smallest tug at her mouth. A breath held, then let go. The wind shifts again, louder this time. Trees creak. A loose shutter bangs against the workshop wall, but inside for now it's still warm. Evan glances down again, turns his wrist. Studies the little red heart like it's some kind of strange, fragile animal someone handed him and walked away. He presses his thumb to the edge. Doesn't smear it, doesn't move. Just lets it stay. Because maybe, just maybe, some things don't have to be permanent to matter. The sky is clear for now. Clouds stack heavy on the far edge of the horizon, but they're waiting. Holding back, giving just enough time. Jack adjusts the rope around the bow, knots tight, checks them twice. All right, he says, on 3. Evan grips the stern. Rosie and Emma crowd near the sides, too small to do much lifting, but determined to be part of it anyway. Nora stands back at first, arms crossed, watching, but not separate, not anymore. Jack glances at her. Come on, he says, takes all of us. Her mouth opens like she might refuse. Habit, maybe. But then she steps forward, grabs hold. Jack counts. 1, 2, 3. The boat rocks forward. Wooden runners scrape over grass, dirt, then sand. They grunt, shift weight, push, and then it hits water. A different sound. Hollow. Alive. The sound of something that was never meant to stay on land. Rosie squeals. It floats. Emma nudges her. Of course it floats. Jack steadies the bow, guides it deeper. Lets the current pull just enough. All right, he says. In. Evan climbs first, feet careful, testing, but the boat holds, solid, steady. Rosie scrambles next. Emma helps her. Nora follows, slower hands gripping the edges tighter than she means to. Jack steps in last. Pushes off the shore with one boot. The boat rocks once, then settles. They float, not far, just past the shallows. Enough for the house to shrink behind them, enough for the trees to blur into one long green line. Jack hands a paddle to Evan, another to Nora, takes one himself. Small strokes, he says, keep her steady. Evan nods, already knows, already moving. Nora's grip is awkward, hesitant. But the water doesn't care. It forgives, guides. Rosie leans over the side, fingers trailing. It feels funny, she giggles, like the ground's wobbly. Emma sits near the bow, quiet, watching the ripples, the way they spread, how one small push becomes something bigger. For a few minutes there's no rush, no noise, just the soft splash of paddles, the creak of wood, the slow realization that they did this together. Jack glances back, toward the shoreline, the house, the workshop, the crooked porch light still hanging crooked but still shining. Then he looks at Nora. She's watching the water, eyes softer than he's ever seen them, shoulders lower, like something heavy finally set down. Her gaze shifts, finds his. They don't smile, don't need to. Because this is what it looks like when strangers stop pretending they are. Rosie points suddenly. Look, a fish. Everyone leans too far. The boat tilts, laughter erupts. Jack shifts weight. Evan mirrors him. The boat steadies, floats. See, Jack says quietly. Told you. Built right, it holds. Nora glances at him, fingers brushing the paddle handle. So does this, she whispers. The sky shifts. What was once blue is now steel. Clouds stack heavy, low, and mean. The kind of sky that doesn't ask permission before it breaks. Jack ties the boat back against the dock. Fast, efficient. Movements tight but calm. His hands know storms. His shoulders know what comes next. Nora stands beside him, watching, helping where she can, passing rope, holding steady. Evan herds the girls inside. Rosie clutches her drawing pad. Emma grabs the old lantern. Neither says it aloud, but they know. They feel it. Jack tightens the last knot, pulls, tests, then finally exhales. It holds. For now, the wind picks up. Sheets flap against the workshop wall. The first drops of rain scatter like warnings. Nora's hands tremble, but not from fear, from something else. Something bigger, something heavier. Jack straightens, looks toward the tree line, then back to the house. We'll need to brace the windows, he mutters. Roof should hold. Probably. Nora nods, doesn't move. Jack notices, frowns. You all right? She opens her mouth, closes it, looks down at her hands, palms rough, nails bitten. Then quietly, not quite looking at him, you know. Her voice shakes, not with fear, with truth. For the longest time I thought we were running. Jack watches her, silent, letting her say it. Nora swallows, fists her hands. Every town, every road, every place that wasn't home. I kept telling the girls we were just waiting for the right stop. Her fingers loosen, but it wasn't that. Not really. She finally looks at him, straight, honest, no hiding left. We weren't running from anything. The wind howls, trees bend, the tarp rips loose, snaps, once then flutters down. Nora steps closer, just enough for her shoulder to brush his. Her voice drops. We were trying to figure out how to come home when we didn't know where home was anymore. For a second, Jack doesn't breathe. Then slowly his fingers brush hers, not grabbing, not pulling, just there. A connection, simple, undeniable. Nora doesn't pull away. She looks back toward the house, the crooked porch light swaying in the wind. The boat tied. The workshop standing strong despite the storm's first growl. And she says it, barely above a whisper, but real, solid. We're not running anymore, Jack. We're finding our way home. Jack nods. Not big, not dramatic, just steady. Yeah, he says, yeah, we are. The first crack of thunder splits the sky. Rain falls harder, faster. Jack squeezes her fingers once, then lets go only because there's work to do. Come on, he says, let's make sure it holds. And side by side they head for the house. Not to hide, not to wait it out, but to hold it together. Because that's what you do when something's finally yours. The storm breaks sometime after midnight. Not ends, just shifts. From violence to exhaustion. The kind of quiet that feels heavier than noise. Rain still falls. Softer now, gentle almost. Like the sky's remembering how to breathe again. Inside the fire burns low. The house creaks not like it's breaking, but like it's settling. Holding. Rosie's asleep, curled against Emma. Evans dozed off, half sitting against the couch, chin tucked to his chest. Jack stands by the window, watching. Not for danger, not anymore. Just watching. Nora steps up beside him, wraps her arms around herself. Leans just enough for her shoulder to touch his. Ugh. Still raining, she murmurs. Yeah, Jack answers, but it's different now. She follows his gaze, out past the tree line, toward the dock, the boat, the place where everything somehow shifted. Then she notices it. Jack's got something in his hand. A wooden plaque, rough cut. Letters carved deep, not perfect, not polished, but real. Built not by accident, but by choice. Nora's breath catches, her fingers brush her lips, not to hide a smile, but to hold back something bigger, heavier. Jack doesn't say anything, doesn't explain it, doesn't need to. He just turns, steps out onto the porch, into the rain. Nora follows. Together in the quiet drip of the storm's aftermath, they walk toward the dock. Boots sinking into wet earth. The wind softer now, gentle, almost apologetic. Jack kneels by the stern, fingers steady despite the cold. He lifts the plaque, checks the bolts, fits it against the wood like it was always meant to be there. Wrench in hand, 1, 2, 3 turns. It holds. He runs a hand along the edge, steps back, looks at it. Nora stands beside him, her arms no longer crossed, hands loose, open. Her voice catches, but she says it anyway. It's perfect. Jack glances sideways, shrugs, not perfect, just right. Out past the dock, beyond the shallows, the lighthouse blinks. Once, twice. Its beam cuts through the lingering mist. For the first time in maybe years, it's not just shining into empty space. Someone's here to see it. Someone's here because they chose to be. Jack looks back at the boat, at the house, at her. Things break, he says quietly. Doesn't mean they're done. Nora nods, feels it in her chest, in her hands, in her bones. The rain softens even more. A breeze rolls through. Cool, clean. She steps forward, runs her palm along the fresh-cut letters, fingers tracing every groove. Built not by accident, but by choice. And for the first time, the weight she's carried isn't something she holds alone anymore. By the time the coffee's done brewing, the house smells like cinnamon salt air and something quieter. Something that feels like peace. Out on the porch, Rosie leans her head against Evan's shoulder. He pretends not to like it, but doesn't move. Nora wipes her hands on a dish towel, pours a second cup without asking, sets it next to Jack. He's busy fiddling with the porch light, tightening a screw, replacing the old bulb, making sure it stays on. Because sometimes it's not about building something new. It's about keeping the light on just long enough for someone to find their way home. The camera pulls back, the boat's still there. The sign on the stern catches the morning sun, built not by accident but by choice. And for the first time in a long time, that doesn't just feel true, it feels permanent. If this story sat quietly with you the way certain stories do, leave a like, maybe subscribe. There's always room on the porch and the light's always on waiting.